It starts in a place much like your own town, with a house that everyone knew, but no one dared to speak of. The old Blackwood Manor. It wasn't just the peeling paint or the overgrown ivy that gave people chills. It was the stories. Stories of a family that vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a single, unsettling clue. A series of strange carvings etched into the walls, the floors, even the furniture. For years, the townsfolk avoided the manor. Kids would dare each other to touch the rusted gate, but none ever went further. Until a group of urban explorers seeking a thrill decided to break the unspoken rule. They documented everything, their cameras capturing the dust-filled rooms and the eerie silence. At first, it was just a game, a way to chase an adrenaline rush. They laughed as they navigated the decaying hallways, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. They found the carvings tracing the deep, intricate patterns with their fingers, marveling at the strange craftsmanship. They didn't know what they were touching. They didn't understand what they were waking up. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere began to shift. The air grew heavy, cold. Whispers seemed to echo from the walls themselves, soft at first, then growing more insistent. The carvings, they almost seemed to glow in the camera's light, the lines appearing darker, deeper than they had just moments before. The explorers started feeling watched, a prickling sensation on the back of their necks. Doors they had just opened were suddenly found closed. Objects would move when no one was looking. Their laughter died, replaced by nervous glances and hushed questions. Was it just their imagination, or was the house alive? One by one, they started seeing things in the periphery. A fleeting shadow in a doorway. A face in a dusty mirror that wasn't their own. The whispers turned into distinct words, ancient and chilling, promising secrets to those who would listen. The carvings were the key. The explorers realized too late that the patterns weren't just decorations. They were a language, a ritual, a story not written in ink, but in something far older, something that had soaked into the very foundation of the manor. They tried to leave, but the front door, once easily opened, was now sealed shut. The windows wouldn't break, the house wouldn't let them go. Their final footage is a chaotic mess of panicked running and terrified screams. The camera drops, but it keeps recording, pointed at a wall where the carvings are now glowing with a faint, pulsing light. You can hear them, the voices from the walls, no longer whispering, but chanting. A vintage radio collector finds an old broadcast tape labeled October 31st, 1991, live. He plays it. The DJ is hosting a Halloween special, joking with callers about local ghost stories, until one caller says, "They're outside my house, wearing masks." The caller screams, the radio crackles, the DJ nervously laughs now, then whispers, "They're at the studio door." Suddenly, the broadcast ends with a sound of screaming and static. The collector turns off the radio. But the broadcast continues. The voices start calling his name. The next morning, his neighbors only hear static from his house. The static hits you first, a sudden hiss that drowns out the late-night talk show. You fiddle with the dial, but it's no use. The car is an island of flickering light in an ocean of darkness, miles from the nearest town. Then a voice cuts through the crackle. It's smooth, almost hypnotic. "Good evening, lonely traveler," it purrs. "A special broadcast just for you. We know you're listening. We know you're alone." Your heart hammers against your ribs. You try to change the station, but the voice follows you up and down the dial. "Don't bother," it chuckles. "Tonight's show is dedicated to the driver of a blue sedan on Old Mill Road." You freeze. That's your car. That's this road. Your eyes dart to the rearview mirror. Nothing but empty, moonlit asphalt. The voice continues, "Our first story is about a man who picked up a hitchhiker he shouldn't have." It ends messily. A chill that has nothing to do with the autumn air creeps down your spine. You grip the steering wheel, knuckles white. The logical part of your brain screams that it's a prank, a pre-recorded Halloween special. But the voice, it feels too real, too personal. Now, where were we? The radio host muses. Ah, yes, the man in the blue sedan. He's starting to sweat, isn't he? He's thinking about turning around, but he knows it's too late. You slam your foot on the brake, the tires screeching in protest. The car lurches to a stop. Silence. The radio is dead. For a moment, you feel a wave of relief. It was just a glitch, a weird, terrifying glitch. Then, a single, soft tap on your passenger side window. Your head snaps to the right. A gaunt face hangs in the darkness, its eyes wide and empty, its lips curled into a silent grin. A single, bony finger is pressed against the glass. You don't remember screaming, but your throat feels raw. You stomp on the gas pedal, the engine roars to life and the car rockets forward, leaving the figure behind. You don't look back. You can't. The radio crackles back on and the same smooth voice fills the car, laced with amusement. A bit jumpy, are we? Don't worry, that was just our first guest. The main event is still to come. Your breath comes in ragged gasps. This isn't a prank. This is happening. Our next segment, the voice announces cheerfully, is a little game. It's called What's That Sound? A slow, rhythmic thumping begins to emanate from the speakers. Thump, 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 thump. Does it sound familiar? The host asks. You realize with dawning horror that the sound isn't just coming from the radio, it's coming from the trunk. Thump, 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 thump. Something is in your trunk and it's trying to get out. Panic sets in, cold and sharp. You swerve, the car fishtailing on the slick road. You have to stop, you have to get out, you have to run. But where? The woods on either side are a wall of black. Careful now, the voice croons. You wouldn't want to crash. We haven't even gotten to the grand finale. The thumping from the trunk gets louder, more frantic. It's joined by a new sound, a low, guttural scraping like claws on metal. You glance at your fuel gauge, nearly empty. A fresh wave of despair washes over you. Oh dear, the radio host says, a note of mock sympathy in his tone. Looks like someone didn't fill up. Tisk, poor planning. Up ahead, a single light flickers in the distance. A gas station. Hope, fragile and desperate, ignites in your chest. As you pull into the deserted, dimly lit station, the radio voice speaks its final words. And that concludes our broadcast for this evening. Thank you for listening. Then static. Just pure, empty static. You kill the engine, the sudden silence deafening. The thumping from the trunk has stopped. You sit there, trembling, for a full minute before slowly, cautiously getting out of the car. The air is still. Too still. You look toward the attendant's booth. The light inside flickers, illuminating a silhouette. A man is sitting behind the counter, his head tilted, watching you. As you take a hesitant step closer, he leans forward into the light. It's the same gaunt face from the side of the road, the same empty eyes. And now he's smiling a wide, toothy grin as he lifts a small, old-fashioned radio and places it on the counter. He taps a button. From the small speaker comes a familiar, smooth voice. Maya decorates her apartment with old mirrors from a thrift shop. One mirror seems odd. It shows her reflection smiling when she isn't. She covers it, but the sound of tapping comes from behind the cloth at night. The next day, her reflection looks tired and afraid. She lifts the cover and asks, "Are you okay?" The reflection mouths, "Behind you." When Maya turns, there's nothing. But in the reflection, a tall, pale figure stands right behind her. The mirror shatters. Maya disappears. Later, the landlord sells the apartment. The mirror is found repaired and spotless, showing a woman still trapped inside it. Not every reflection is yours. Have you ever caught a glimpse of yourself in a mirror just for a split second and sworn you saw something wrong? A flicker of movement? A smile that wasn't yours? I used to dismiss it as my eyes playing tricks on me. That was before I bought the antique mirror. It was a beautiful piece, tall and ornate, with a heavy dark wood frame carved with twisting vines. I found it tucked away in the dusty corner of a forgotten antique shop. The shopkeeper, a stooped man with eyes like faded photographs, sold it to me for a shockingly low price. He just said, "Some things are best left unseen." I laughed it off. I shouldn't have. That first night, I hung it in my bedroom directly across from my bed. As I was getting ready to sleep, I glanced at my reflection. For a moment, it seemed to lag behind my reflected self, turning its head a fraction of a second after I did. I blinked, and everything was normal again. Just tired, I told myself. But it kept happening. Small things at first. I'd be brushing my teeth, and my reflection would be using the opposite hand. I'd walk past it, and out of the corner of my eye, the figure in the glass would remain still, watching me go. I started to feel a constant, prickling sense of being observed in my own home. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Every time I'd drift off, I'd be jolted awake by the feeling of cold eyes on me from across the room. One evening, I decided to test it. I stood dead still in front of the mirror, my heart hammering against my ribs. I stared into my own reflected eyes, trying not to breathe, trying not to move a muscle. For a full minute, nothing happened. Then, slowly, deliberately, the reflection's mouth curved into a wide, unnatural smile. A smile I wasn't making, a smile full of malice. Panic seized me. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. The reflection held its terrifying grin, its eyes locked onto mine. It then raised a hand and beckoned me closer, its fingers crooking in a silent, chilling invitation. I ran. I fled my bedroom, slamming the door shut, my mind screaming. I spent the night on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the locked bedroom door, listening. I could hear a faint, rhythmic tapping coming from inside. Tap, 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 like a fingernail against glass. The next day, I knew I had to get rid of it. I couldn't live like this. Mustering all my courage, I threw open the bedroom door. The room was silent. The mirror stood there, innocent, reflecting the empty doorway. I walked towards it, my steps heavy. As I got closer, I saw my reflection approaching, just as it should. But something was different. The room reflected in the mirror wasn't my room. The walls were darker, peeling, the furniture was decayed, and my reflection, it looked gaunt, pale, its eyes sunken and hollow. It stopped when I stopped, just inches from the glass. Its cold, dead eyes stared into mine, and its lips parted, not in a smile this time, but to whisper a single, silent word I could read on its lips. Stay. That's when I saw it. Behind my reflection, deep within the mirrored world, stood a dark, shadowy figure. It had no face, just a vague outline of a human form, and it was getting closer, its long arms reaching out for my reflected self. My reflection's eyes widened in terror, not at me, but at the thing behind it. It was trapped. It wasn't my enemy. It was a prisoner, another victim, and it was warning me. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a lamp, from my bedside table, and without a second thought, I hurled it at the mirror. The sound was deafening, a sharp explosion of shattering glass. Shards flew everywhere, and for a split second before the whole thing crumbled, I saw the shadowy figure recoil, and my reflection. It looked at me one last time, its expression not one of malice, but of gratitude. Then it was gone, dissolving into 1,000 broken pieces. I haven't had a mirror in my house since. I avoid my reflection in shop windows, in puddles on the street. Because sometimes when I catch a glimpse of myself, I can still see those hollow, haunted eyes looking back. It makes me wonder, did I really break the mirror? Or did I just break the glass that was keeping whatever was inside in? What if the next time I look in a mirror, the reflection that looks back isn't me, but the thing that was standing behind me? Every Halloween, kids visit Maple Street to collect candy. But there's one house, number 47, that no one dares to knock on. This year, 3 teens dare each other to go there. They find the porch lights on and a bowl of candy labeled "Take One Forever." When one boy takes 2 candies, the lights flicker out. The door creaks open, revealing an old woman smiling. "It's been so long since someone stayed," she whispers. They try to leave, but the street loops endlessly. Every turn brings them back to house 47. By morning, their bikes are found outside, but the bowl is full again, with 3 new candies inside. Take one forever. The air was thick with the scent of fallen leaves and burnt sugar, a quintessential Halloween night. At the very end of the cul-de-sac, a house we'd never noticed before stood in shadow. It was an old Victorian, dark and imposing, with a single jack-o'-lantern flickering on the porch. No other decorations, no festive lights, just that one solitary pumpkin with a grin that seemed a little too wide, a little too hungry. Chloe hesitated. "I don't know, guys, it looks kind of empty."
"Don't be a scaredy cat," I teased, pulling my own vampire cape tighter. "It's the last house. One more score for the road." My voice was braver than I felt. Something about the house set my teeth on edge. The silence around it was heavy, swallowing the distant laughter of other kids, but the unspoken challenge hung in the air, and none of us wanted to be the first to back down.
We walked up the cracked pathway, our footsteps sounding unnervingly loud. The porch floorboards creaked under our weight like ancient bones. The jack-o'-lantern's light danced across the peeling paint of the front door, making the shadows writhe. I reached out and knocked. The sound echoed into the house, followed by an unnerving silence. We waited. Just as we were about to turn away, a slow, deliberate creak signaled the door was opening. A very old woman stood there, draped in a black shawl that blended into the darkness behind her. Her face was a road map of wrinkles, and her eyes, pale and cloudy, seemed to look right through us. "Trick or treat?" Chloe squeaked, holding up her bag. The woman smiled, a slow, unsettling curve of her lips. "Oh, I have treats," she rasped, her voice like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "The best treats, but I only give them to those who appreciate a good trick first." She gestured for us to come inside. Against all common sense, we stepped over the threshold. The air inside was cold and musty, smelling of dust and something else, something metallic and sweet. The door clicked shut behind us, the sound echoing with a terrifying finality. The room was filled with antique furniture draped in white sheets like ghosts waiting for a party. "My trick is simple," the old woman said, her cloudy eyes now seeming to glint with a strange light. "You just have to find the candy. It's hidden somewhere in this house." She gestured around the dimly lit hall. "But be warned, the house doesn't like to give up its treasures." A shiver went down my spine. This wasn't a game. Liam, ever the skeptic, scoffed. "Seriously? A scavenger hunt?" He started towards a sheet-covered armchair, but the woman's hand shot out, surprisingly strong, and gripped his arm. "The house has rules," she hissed. "You must not disturb the residents." "Residents? We were the only ones here, weren't we?" She let go of Liam and glided towards a grand staircase. "The candy is upstairs," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "In the last room at the end of the hall. Go on." As we started up the stairs, each step groaning in protest, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, not just by the old woman, but by the house itself. The portraits on the wall, their eyes painted with eerie realism, seemed to follow our every move. The air grew colder with each step we took. We reached the top of the stairs and looked down the long, dark hallway. A single door stood at the far end, slightly ajar, a faint, warm light spilling from the crack.
See? It's just a game, Liam said, though his voice trembled slightly. He started walking, but Chloe grabbed my arm. Wait, she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Do you hear that? I listened. Underneath the creaking of the floorboards, there was another sound, a faint, rhythmic scratching. It seemed to be coming from behind the walls, from all around us. Scratch, scratch, scratch.
It was like rats, but bigger. Ignoring it, we crept down the hall, the scratching growing louder, more frantic. We reached the last door. I pushed it open slowly. The room was small and completely empty, save for a single, ornate wooden chair in the center. On the seat of the chair was a large crystal bowl overflowing with every kind of candy imaginable. It glowed with a soft, inviting light. It was a trick-or-treater's paradise. We rushed forward, our fear momentarily forgotten in our greed. But as we reached for the candy, the door slammed shut behind us. The light from the candy bowl died, plunging us into absolute darkness. The scratching stopped, and in the sudden, deafening silence, a new sound began, a low, guttural giggle that came from the chair right in front of us. It wasn't the old woman, it was something else. Then a voice, young and playful, echoed in the dark. "You found the treat! Now! It's time for my trick!" The giggle erupted into laughter, a sound that chilled us to the bone as we realized the truth. The house was the trap, the candy was the bait, and we weren't the guests, we were the treats, the last trick-or-treaters the house would ever see.